Welcome to my channel, a vlog that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The fluorescent lights hummed overhead with that particular frequency that made my temples throb. I'd been at Moretti Imports for exactly 3 weeks, and I still wasn't used to the strange electricity that seemed to permeate every corner of this building. It wasn't just the buzz of the lights or the hum of computers. It was something deeper, more primal. A current of danger that ran beneath the polished marble floors and expensive artwork that lined the executive corridors. My fingers flew across the keyboard, transcribing the morning's meeting notes with mechanical precision. The leather chair creaked softly as I shifted, trying to ease the stiffness in my lower back from sitting too long. Outside my small office, really just a glorified cubicle with a door, I could hear the murmur of voices, the click of designer heels on marble, the occasional burst of laughter that always seemed slightly forced. Moretti Imports dealt in luxury goods, or so the paperwork said. Fine wines, Italian leather, artisanal ceramics. But in my 3 weeks here, I'd noticed things. Meetings that happened behind closed doors with men whose eyes were too hard, too watchful. Shipments that arrived at odd hours. Conversations that stopped abruptly when I entered a room. Phone calls taken in rapid Italian that I couldn't quite follow, though my grandmother's limited lessons had given me enough to catch certain words. Words like territory and agreement and problem. I wasn't stupid. I knew what Moretti Imports really was. A front for something darker, something dangerous. But the pay was triple what I'd made at my previous administrative job. The benefits were generous, and most importantly, they'd hired me without asking too many questions about the gap in my employment history. The year I'd spent recovering from my ex-boyfriend's particular brand of psychological torture wasn't something I liked to explain in interviews. The knock on my door was soft, but confident. I looked up to find Aaron Moretti leaning against the frame, his boyish smile a stark contrast to the expensive suit he wore. At 25, he was the younger of the 2 Moretti brothers, and the only one who seemed to remember that smiling was a thing humans did. "Lily," he said, his voice warm and casual. "Got a minute?" I saved my document and turned to face him fully. "Of course, Mr. Moretti." "Aaron," he corrected for probably the 20th time since I'd started. "Mr. Moretti makes me feel old." I smiled despite myself. Aaron had that effect on people. An easy charm that made you want to like him, even knowing his last name came with a body count. "What can I help you with, Aaron?" He stepped into the office, closing the door behind him with a soft click that made my pulse quicken slightly. Not because I feared him. Aaron had never given me reason to. But because closed doors in this building meant private conversations. And private conversations usually meant I was about to learn something I'd rather not know. "Just wanted to check in," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk, with the casual grace of someone who'd never had to worry about whether he belonged somewhere. "See how you're settling in. 3 weeks is long enough to get a feel for the place." "I'm settling in fine," I said, keeping my voice professional. "Everyone's been very helpful." "Including my brother?" The question caught me off guard. I'd barely interacted with Adrian Moretti, the older brother and CEO. He was a shadow that moved through the building, commanding attention without demanding it. Tall, dark-haired, with eyes the color of storm clouds that seemed to see through walls, through flesh, straight to the truth of things. The few times I'd been in his presence, I'd felt simultaneously invisible and completely exposed. "Mr. Moretti has been perfectly professional," I said carefully. Aaron laughed. "That's Adrian's specialty, perfectly professional. Sometimes I think he was born in a suit, carrying a briefcase." He leaned forward, his expression shifting to something more genuine. "But really, Lily, you doing okay? This place can be intense for newcomers." There was something in his tone that made me think he knew exactly how intense it could be, that he understood the weight of working somewhere that operated in shadows, where every conversation might have layers you couldn't see. "I'm tougher than I look," I said, meaning it. I believe it. His smile returned. You wouldn't have lasted 3 weeks if you weren't. Most people don't make it past the first when they realize what this place really is. So he knew that I knew. The acknowledgement hung between us, unspoken, but clear. Speaking of settling in, Aaron continued, his tone shifting back to casual. You should come out with some of us Friday night. There's a group that hits this bar in Little Italy. Good food, better wine, terrible karaoke. Very low-key. I don't know if that's appropriate, I hedged. Though part of me, the part that had been isolated for too long, first by my ex and then by my recovery from him, wanted to say yes. It's completely appropriate, Aaron assured me. Just co-workers grabbing drinks. No pressure. He paused, then added with studied casualness, You dating anyone? Boyfriend who'd mind you going out with the work crowd? The question was innocent enough, but something in the air shifted. I felt it like a change in barometric pressure before a storm. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees, and the fine hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Not yet, I answered, the words slipping out automatically. I didn't see Adrian Moretti enter. One moment Aaron and I were alone in my small office, and the next his brother was there, filling the doorway with a presence that seemed to suck the oxygen from the room. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, his dark hair perfectly styled, his expression absolutely neutral. But his eyes, those storm-gray eyes, were anything but neutral as they fixed on Aaron. Aaron. Adrian's voice was quiet, controlled, but I heard something beneath it, something cold and sharp as a blade. Don't you have the Castellano meeting in 5 minutes? Aaron's easy smile didn't falter, but I saw tension enter his shoulders. Right. Lost track of time. He stood nodding to me. Think about Friday, Lily. It'd be good to have you. He left, squeezing past his brother in the doorway. Adrian didn't move to let him pass more easily. For a moment after Aaron disappeared down the hallway, Adrian remained in my doorway, his gaze now fixed on me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Ms. Miller, he said, my name formal on his lips despite the fact that everyone else in the office called me Lily. I need the Giordano contracts reviewed and on my desk by end of day. Of course, Mr. Moretti. And Ms. Miller? He paused, something flickering across his face too quickly for me to identify. My brother means well, but fraternizing with co-workers outside the office can create complications. I'd suggest maintaining professional boundaries. The warning was clear, delivered in that same quiet, controlled voice. But I heard what he wasn't saying. Stay away from Aaron. Stay away from all of us. Keep your distance from this world we inhabit. Understood, Mr. Moretti. He nodded once, sharply, and left. But the imprint of his presence remained, like an afterimage burned into my retinas from staring at the sun. I sat there for a long moment, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to understand the strange undercurrent that had just passed through my small office. I didn't know then what I was feeling. Didn't recognize the way my skin had flushed when Adrian looked at me, or the strange disappointment that had settled in my chest when he'd warned me away from his brother. Didn't understand that the electricity I'd been feeling since starting this job wasn't just danger or fear, but something far more complicated. The rest of the day passed in a blur of contracts and phone calls, and the constant awareness of Adrian Moretti somewhere in this building, his presence a magnetic pull I couldn't quite ignore. When I finally left at 6, later than most of the other administrative staff, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed too beautiful for the uneasy feeling churning in my stomach. I took the subway home to my tiny studio apartment, trying to shake the memory of Adrian's eyes boring into mine, that quiet voice delivering a warning that had felt almost like a threat. Or a plea. I couldn't tell which, and that uncertainty followed me into sleep, where I dreamed of storm-gray eyes and the scent of expensive cologne, of danger wrapped in a perfectly tailored suit. The morning after Aaron's casual question about my dating life, the atmosphere at Moretti Imports had shifted in ways I couldn't quite define. It was like the building itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The usual morning bustle, emails chiming, phones ringing, the espresso machine in the break room hissing, felt muted, as though someone had turned down the volume on normal office life. I arrived at my desk to find a note, handwritten on heavy cream cardstock with the Moretti family crest embossed at the top. The handwriting was precise, almost aggressive in its perfect formation. My office. 8:30 a.m. Adrian. My hands trembled slightly as I set down my coffee, the cheap paper cup from the bodega across the street suddenly feeling inadequate in this world of Italian leather and imported marble. It was 8:15. I had 15 minutes to calm my racing heart and figure out why the CEO wanted to see me in his private office. The executive floor was different from where I worked. Everything was quieter, more expensive, more deliberate. My sensible flats made no sound on the plush carpet as I made my way down the hallway lined with oil paintings that probably cost more than I'd earn in a decade. Adrian's office was at the end, double doors of dark wood that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. I knocked at exactly 8:30. Enter. The office beyond was massive, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture in shades of charcoal and cream, and that same sense of controlled power that emanated from Adrian himself. He stood with his back to me, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against the morning light. "Close the door, Ms. Miller." I did, and the soft click seemed to seal us into a space removed from the rest of the world. My pulse hammered in my throat as I waited, watching his broad shoulders, the perfect line of his suit jacket, the way his dark hair caught the light. "You've been here 3 weeks," he said, still not turning. "In that time, you've never been late, never made an error in your work, and never asked questions you shouldn't ask. That's remarkable in this organization. Thank you, Mr. Moretti." "Don't thank me yet." He turned then, and the full force of his attention hit me like a physical blow. Those gray eyes held something I'd never seen before, a barely controlled fury that made every muscle in my body tense for flight. "I'm not complimenting you. I'm observing patterns." I said nothing, didn't trust my voice. "My brother asked if you were dating anyone," Adrian continued, moving toward his desk with predatory grace. "A casual question, friendly coworker conversation. Except Aaron doesn't do anything casually, and there are no friendly conversations in this building. Everything here serves a purpose. I don't understand what you're implying, Mr. Moretti." "Don't you?" He leaned against his desk, crossing his arms over his chest. "You're an attractive woman, Ms. Miller. Intelligent, competent, and apparently unattached. My brother has noticed. And when Aaron notices someone, he pursues. It's in his nature." Heat flooded my cheeks, part embarrassment, part anger at being discussed like a piece of property. "With all due respect, sir, my personal life—" "There is no personal life here." The words cracked through the air like a whip. "Not for people who work for me. Not when maintaining certain boundaries is crucial to everyone's safety." The emphasis on safety made my breath catch. This wasn't about workplace professionalism. This was about something else entirely. "I should tell you something, Ms. Miller. Something that might help you understand the situation you've walked into." Adrian moved to the window, presenting me with his profile. In the morning light, I could see the sharp angle of his jaw, the slight imperfection of his nose that suggested it had been broken once, the scar that ran along his left temple, barely visible but there nonetheless. "I'm engaged to be married." The words hit me with unexpected force. I'd known Adrian Moretti was dangerous, powerful, probably ruthless. But somehow, I hadn't imagined him engaged, preparing to share his life with someone. "Congratulations," I managed, though the word felt hollow. His laugh was bitter. "It's not that kind of engagement, Ms. Miller. It's an arrangement between families. The Morettis and the Castellanos have been dancing around war for 3 years. This marriage is the peace treaty." Understanding dawned slowly. An arranged marriage to prevent bloodshed. It was medieval and brutal, and exactly the kind of thing that would make sense in this world of unspoken rules and shadow empires. "I see. Do you?" He turned to face me fully. "Do you understand that my upcoming marriage is the only thing standing between peace and a war that would swallow this entire city? That every alliance, every business deal, every fragile agreement depends on me walking down the aisle with Isabella Castellano in 8 months? Then why are you telling me this?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "Because my brother is interested in you. And when Aaron wants something, he has a habit of pursuing it regardless of consequences. I can't have that. I can't have you becoming a complication. I'm not interested in your brother," I said, the truth surprising even me. "Aren't you?" Adrian moved closer, each step deliberate, measured. "He's charming, handsome, available. Everything I'm not." The way he said available made my skin flush with awareness. He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive with notes of bergamot, close enough to see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "I'm not interested in anyone, Mr. Moretti. I came here to work, nothing more." "Liar." The word was soft, almost gentle, but it cut through me like a blade. "You feel it too. This pull between us. You've felt it since your first day, when I walked past your desk and you looked up at me with those wide eyes, trying to figure out if I was friend or foe." My breath came faster. I should deny it, should step back, maintain professional distance, remember the 1,000 reasons why letting this man get too close would be dangerous. But I couldn't move, couldn't look away from those storm-gray eyes that saw too much. "You're engaged," I whispered. "Yes." His hand came up, fingers grazing my jaw in a touch so light it might have been imagined. "To a woman I've met exactly twice, who looks at me with the same calculation I see in her father's eyes, who understands that this marriage is a business arrangement, nothing more, who will give me the heirs required to continue the family line and expect nothing from me beyond respect and fidelity." The word fidelity hung between us, heavy with implication. "This conversation is inappropriate, Mr. Moretti. Everything about this situation is inappropriate." His thumb traced my lower lip, and I fought not to tremble. "But that doesn't make it any less real. When I heard you tell Aaron you weren't dating anyone, when I heard that not yet in your voice, like you were considering his invitation, like you might let him take you to dinner and ply you with wine and make you laugh." He stopped, jaw clenching. I wanted to put my fist through a wall. "That's not my problem." I forced the words out, trying to hold on to some shred of professionalism, of self-preservation. "Isn't it? Because the next time Aaron asks you out, and he will, you'll remember this conversation. You'll remember the way you're looking at me right now, the way your pulse is racing in your throat." His fingers moved to that very spot, feeling the betraying flutter. "You'll remember that I claimed you before he ever could, even if only in this room, in this moment. You can't claim what doesn't belong to you." "Can't I?" His smile was dark, dangerous. "I've been watching you, Lily. Yes, I know your first name, even if I refuse to use it in public. I've been watching the way you bite your lower lip when you're concentrating, the way you always arrive exactly 7 minutes early. Never 8, never 6. The way you take your coffee with just a splash of cream, no sugar. The way you tuck your hair behind your left ear when you're nervous. I know you, Lily Miller, and knowing you has become a dangerous obsession. I should run. Every instinct screamed at me to get out of this office, this building, this world that Adrian Moretti inhabited. But my feet remained rooted to the plush carpet, my body betraying every logical thought with its refusal to move. This can't happen, I said, though even I could hear the lack of conviction in my voice. I know. He stepped back, the loss of his proximity almost painful. Which is why you're going to stay away from Aaron. You're going to decline his invitation Friday night. You're going to maintain strict professional boundaries with everyone in this building, including and especially me. And if I don't? The question surprised us both. I saw something flare in his eyes, hope or hunger or perhaps both. If you don't, he said slowly, then we're both lost. Because I can't have you, Lily. Having you means breaking my engagement. Breaking my engagement means war. War means bodies in the street, families destroyed, innocent people caught in crossfire. Can you live with that? Can you be the reason blood flows in this city? The brutal honesty of his words crashed over me. This wasn't just about desire or forbidden attraction. This was about life and death. About consequences that extended far beyond the two of us. No, I whispered. I couldn't live with that. Then we're in agreement. But he didn't sound relieved. He sounded hollow, defeated in a way I suspected Adrian Moretti rarely was. You'll keep your distance. From Aaron, from me, from everyone. You'll do your job, collect your generous paycheck, and leave at the end of each day without looking back. Yes, Mr. Moretti. Adrian. The correction was sharp, almost painful. In here, when we're alone, you call me Adrian. It's the only thing I'll allow myself to take from you. Adrian, I repeated, and watched something break open in his eyes. Go, he said roughly, turning away. Before I forget every reason this is impossible, and do something we'll both regret. I left his office on trembling legs, the door closing behind me with a finality that felt like an ending before anything had really begun. But as I made my way back to my desk, I knew with cold certainty that nothing was ended. This was only the beginning. The rest of that week, I saw Adrian everywhere. In the hallway, his eyes finding mine for just a moment before he looked away. In the elevator, his shoulder brushing mine in the confined space, both of us staring straight ahead. In the parking garage, his car pulling out just as I arrived, our windows aligned for 3 heartbeats before he drove away. And I understood that distance wasn't going to save either of us. The pull between us had become magnetic, inevitable. We were 2 planets caught in each other's orbit, circling closer with each passing day, despite every attempt to maintain our separate paths. When Aaron asked me again about Friday drinks, I declined as promised. But I saw the way Adrian watched from his office door as Aaron walked away, saw the possessive satisfaction in those gray eyes, even as he turned back to his work, without acknowledging me. I was his, he was mine. And God help us both, because we were heading toward catastrophe with the inexorable force of a freight train, and neither of us seemed capable of stepping off the tracks. 3 months into my employment at Moretti Imports, the careful distance Adrian and I had established began to crumble in small, devastating ways. It started with the memories, unbidden flashes of a night I'd convinced myself meant nothing. But it had meant everything, and denying it was becoming impossible. I'd met Adrian Moretti before my job interview, before I knew his name or his reputation or the empire he commanded. I'd met him at a hotel bar 6 months ago, when I was still raw from leaving my ex, when I'd gone out with my roommate Emma determined to prove I could have one normal night without fear. He'd been alone at the bar, nursing expensive whiskey, reading a book of Italian poetry that seemed incongruous with his expensive suit and obvious power. When I'd accidentally bumped into him, apologizing profusely, he'd smiled. A real smile, warm and genuine. Nothing like the cold mask he wore now. "No harm done," he'd said, his voice softer than I remembered it being in the office. "Can I buy you a drink to make up for existing in your way?" We'd talked for hours. About books and cities and the weight of expectations. He'd never mentioned his last name. I'd never asked. When he'd invited me to his room, I'd gone willingly, desperately needing to feel something other than broken. That night had been gentle and intense and transformative. He'd touched me like I was precious, looked at me like I mattered, made me feel beautiful instead of damaged. In the morning, he was gone, a note on hotel stationery thanking me for an unexpected gift, and nothing more. No number, no name, no way to find him. I'd tried to forget, told myself it was a one-night thing, meaningless and perfect precisely because it would never be repeated. Then I'd walked into my interview at Moretti Imports and seen him across the conference room table, his face carefully neutral as he pretended we'd never met. Now, standing in his office at 7 p.m. on a Friday when everyone else had left, I watched him pour 2 glasses of red wine and wondered how much longer we could keep pretending. "You remember," he said quietly, handing me a glass. Not a question. "Yes." "How long have you known?" "Since the interview. I saw recognition in your eyes before you hid it." I took a sip, the wine rich and complex on my tongue. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because acknowledging it would make it real." He moved to the window, that familiar position he took when he needed distance. That night was supposed to be an aberration, a moment outside my life, outside my obligations. Finding you again, here, working for me, it felt like fate mocking my attempts at control. So you hired me anyway. I hired you because you were the best candidate, and because I couldn't stand the thought of not seeing you again, even if seeing you was torture. He turned, his expression raw in a way I'd never witnessed. "Do you have any idea what it's been like? Watching you every day, remembering how you felt in my arms, knowing I can never have that again?" My hand trembled, wine nearly sloshing over the rim. "You're engaged." "I've been engaged since I was 17, Lily. My father arranged it with Marco Castellano before either of us had a say. Isabella and I have met exactly 4 times in 12 years. 4 carefully orchestrated meetings where we discuss terms and expectations and the practical realities of merging 2 families. There's no love there. There never will be. But there's duty, honor, the prevention of war. Yes." The word was heavy with resignation. All of that. I set down my wine, needing my hands free, needing to move before I did something foolish. "Why tell me this now? Why break the distance we've maintained?" "Because tomorrow I'm flying to Rome with Isabella to meet her extended family. We'll finalize the wedding details, smile for photographs, play the devoted couple for the family patriarchs who require this union." His voice turned bitter. "And when I come back in 2 weeks, there will be an official announcement. The engagement will become public. The countdown to my marriage will begin in earnest." Understanding crashed over me. This was goodbye. One final moment of honesty before the cage door closed forever. "Adrian." "Let me finish." He crossed to me, close enough that I could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the weight he carried. "I need you to know that night we shared meant something to me. You weren't just a beautiful woman in a bar. You were the first person in years who saw me as a man instead of a title, an obligation, a commodity to be traded. When you laughed at my terrible jokes about Italian literature, when you told me about your dreams of writing, when you trusted me enough to be vulnerable, it was the most real I'd felt in my entire life. Tears burned my eyes. Then don't marry her. There has to be another way. There isn't. The Castellanos control the port, the unions, half the judges in the state. Without this alliance, they'll move against us. People will die, Lily. Not just men in this life who understand the risks, but innocent people caught in the crossfire. I can't let that happen. So you'll sacrifice yourself instead. I'll do my duty. But his hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. But first, I need to tell you the truth. I'm in love with you, Lily Miller. I've been in love with you since that night in the hotel bar, when you argued with me about Dante's Inferno, and made me remember that beauty exists in this dark world. Finding you again only deepened it. Watching you navigate this dangerous place with grace and intelligence, seeing you stand up to Aaron when he pushed too hard, noticing the small kindnesses you show the other staff, you've become essential to me. The thought of you is the first thing I reach for each morning, and the last thing I hold before sleep, and it's destroying me. Adrian. His name broke on my lips. I love you too. I hadn't meant to say it, hadn't even admitted it to myself until the words were already out, suspended in the air between us, irrevocable and true. His eyes closed as though I'd struck him. Don't. Please don't say that. It's the truth. I've loved you since that night too. I just didn't know your name to attach to the feeling. When I saw you in the interview, part of me died realizing you were untouchable. And these months of working here, of being close but impossibly distant, they've been agony. This changes nothing. But his other hand had found my waist, pulling me closer despite his words. I still have to marry Isabella. I still have to protect my family, the innocent people who depend on our peace with the Castellanos. I know. I reached up, my palm against his jaw, feeling the muscle tick beneath my touch. I know you do. But before you go, before you become hers in the eyes of the world, give me this. Give me one more memory to hold on to. Lily. Please. It was a whisper. A prayer. A desperate plea from a woman who'd already lost too much and was about to lose everything that mattered. One more night. That's all I'm asking. One more night to pretend that the world outside this office doesn't exist. That duty and honor and arranged marriages aren't real. Just you and me, and the truth between us. His control shattered like glass. His mouth found mine in a kiss that tasted of desperation and wine and goodbye. It was different from our first night together. Less gentle, more urgent, weighted with the knowledge that this truly was the end. We moved through his office like dancers who'd rehearsed this choreography in our dreams. My back against the bookshelf, his hands tangling in my hair. His desk cleared with one sweep of his arm, papers scattering across expensive carpet. The leather couch where we finally came together, his suit jacket cushioning my head, my dress pooled on the floor like spilled ink. I love you. He breathed against my throat, my collarbone, the curve of my breast. I love you, and I can never say it again after tonight. Then say it now, I gasped, my hands mapping the muscles of his back, the breadth of his shoulders, committing every detail to memory. Say it over and over until morning. And he did. Between kisses and touches and the desperate joining of two people trying to pack a lifetime of love into a handful of hours, he said it, whispered it like a benediction, shouted it like a curse, breathed it like oxygen he needed to survive. When dawn crept through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting us in shades of pink and gold, we lay tangled together on that leather couch, neither willing to move and break the spell. I leave in 3 hours, Adrian said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. Wheels up at 10 for Rome. I know. I pressed a kiss to his chest, above his heart, feeling it beat steady and strong. Will you think of me? Every moment, every breath, every heartbeat. He tilted my face up to meet his gaze. But when I come back, Lily, we can't do this again. The announcement will be public. The wedding will be 6 months away. I can't ask you to stay here, watching me prepare to marry someone else. You're not asking. I'm choosing. I sat up, pulling his shirt around myself, needing armor for what I was about to say. I'm choosing to stay because I love you. Because these stolen moments, these glances across the office, the sound of your voice even when you're speaking to someone else, they're all I get, and I'll take them. I'll take any piece of you I can have, even if it destroys me. That's not fair to you. Nothing about this situation is fair. But it's mine. This pain, this love, this impossible situation, it's all mine, and I'm keeping it. He pulled me back down, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. You're the strongest person I've ever known, and the most foolish for loving me. Probably. I smiled against his chest. But I've never been known for making sensible decisions. We stayed like that until his phone alarm shattered the silence, signaling it was time for him to leave, to become Adrian Moretti again, CEO, mob boss, fiancé to Isabella Castellano. As I dressed and prepared to slip out before the building filled with mourning staff, he caught my hand. Lily. My name was rough on his lips. If there was any other way, I know. I pressed my fingers to his mouth, stopping the words. I know, Adrian, and I love you anyway. I love you enough to let you go. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Promise me you'll remember that someone loved you for who you are, not what you can provide. Promise me you'll know that once, in a hotel bar and again in your office at dawn, you were seen completely and loved anyway. I promise. He kissed me one last time, soft and sweet and absolutely final. Now go, before I change my mind about everything and damn the consequences. I left his office, rode the empty elevator down to the lobby, walked out into the cool morning air, and I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that I'd just given my heart to a man who could never fully be mine. But somehow, impossibly, it felt right. Like this was always how it was meant to be. Loving Adrian Moretti from a distance, holding our secret nights like precious jewels, and waiting for a miracle I knew would never come. Adrian returned from Rome exactly 2 weeks later, and the announcement hit the society pages the next morning. Adrian Moretti and Isabella Castellano, to wed in grand ceremony, uniting 2 prominent families. The photograph showed them on some Roman terrace, Isabella beautiful and poised in a white dress, Adrian's arm around her waist, both of them smiling for the camera. I stared at that photo for probably too long, coffee growing cold in my hand, memorizing the polite distance in Adrian's eyes, even as he held another woman. Tough to see, isn't it? Aaron appeared beside my desk, following my gaze to the newspaper spread before me. My brother finally making it official with the Ice Queen. I forced my expression neutral. I'm sure they'll be very happy. Happy? Aaron laughed bitterly. That marriage has nothing to do with happiness, and everything to do with preventing bloodshed. Isabella's father controls half the city, and this union is the only thing stopping him from trying to take the other half. He paused. You knew Adrian was engaged, right? Of course. The lie came easily. Everyone at the office had known about the arrangement, even if the specifics were rarely discussed. Good, because I'd hate for you to have gotten any ideas. There was something probing in Aaron's gaze, a sharpness that made me think he suspected more than he was saying. Adrian's very particular about his obligations. Once he commits to something, he sees it through, no matter the personal cost. That's admirable. Is it? Aaron's voice dropped lower. I think it's tragic, Marrying someone you don't love, producing heirs out of duty, spending your life in a gilded cage. That's not admirable, Lily. That's a prison sentence. The use of my first name made me look up sharply. Aaron rarely used it, usually maintaining the same professional distance his brother insisted on. What do you want, Aaron? I want you to come to dinner with me, tomorrow night. Somewhere far from this office and the expectations that come with it. I can't. Your brother specifically said, My brother doesn't own you. Aaron's voice hardened, and he's made his choice. He's marrying Isabella, building his alliance, playing the dutiful heir. That means whatever interest he might have shown in you. And don't think I haven't noticed the way he looks at you when he thinks no one's watching. Is off the table. Permanently. My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't know what you're implying. Don't you? He leaned closer. I'm not blind, Lily. I see the tension between you two. The way conversations stop when you enter a room. The way he found excuses to be near your desk those first few months, before the Rome trip. Something happened between you, didn't it? Nothing happened. The second lie today, easier than the first. Your brother has always been completely professional. Professional. Aaron shook his head. That's one word for it. Another would be tormented. Did you know he came back from Rome different? More closed off, more cold. Even Isabella noticed. She called my mother asking if something was wrong, if Adrian was having doubts about the marriage. The thought of Adrian tormented because of me sent guilt spiraling through my chest. Maybe he just doesn't want to marry someone he doesn't love. Maybe. Or maybe he realized he can't have what he actually wants, so he's hardening himself against all feeling to survive the life he's chosen. Aaron straightened. Either way, it doesn't change the fact that I'm asking you to dinner. As a friend. As someone who thinks you deserve more than pining for a man who can never be yours. The brutal honesty of it made me flinch. I'm not pining. Liar. But his smile was gentle. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. There's this little Thai place in Queens that makes killer pads see you and doesn't care about last names or family obligations. Say yes, Lily. Let yourself have one normal evening. Before I could answer, Adrian's voice cut across the office. Aaron. My office. Now. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Aaron's expression shifted to something carefully neutral, but I caught a flash of defiance in his eyes before he turned away. Think about it, he said quietly, then headed toward Adrian's office. I couldn't hear what they said behind closed doors, but I saw the tension in both their bodies through the glass walls. Adrian's gestures sharp and controlled, Aaron's more expansive, almost challenging. Whatever was being discussed, it wasn't pleasant. When Aaron emerged 20 minutes later, his expression was carefully blank. He didn't look at me as he passed, just grabbed his jacket and left the building. I tried to focus on work, but the words on my screen blurred together. The weight of Adrian's ring on Isabella's finger felt like it was pressing against my own chest, making it hard to breathe. At 6, when most of the staff had left, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My apartment. 8 p.m. We need to talk. I shouldn't have gone. Every logical bone in my body screamed at me to ignore it, to maintain the distance that was supposed to keep us both safe. But at 7:55, I was standing outside the address he'd sent, in front of a gleaming high-rise in Tribeca that probably had more square footage in its lobby than my entire apartment building. The doorman let me up without question, as though he'd been expecting me. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt eternal, and far too short all at once. Adrian opened the door before I could knock. He'd changed from his suit into dark jeans and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up, looking more human, and somehow more dangerous than I'd ever seen him. You came, he said, as though surprised. You asked. I I stepped inside, taking in the massive space with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, the minimalist furniture in shades of gray and black, the complete absence of anything personal. It looked like a hotel suite, beautiful, but sterile. What did you say to Aaron? I told him to stay away from you. Adrian closed the door, the soft click echoing in the cavernous space. He refused. He has every right to ask me to dinner. Does he? Adrian moved closer, his expression unreadable. Did you say yes? I haven't answered yet. But you're considering it. Not a question. Why shouldn't I? The words came out sharper than I intended. You're engaged, Adrian. You're marrying Isabella in 6 months. You've made your choice, and it wasn't me. So yes, I'm considering having dinner with someone who actually can offer me something beyond stolen moments and heartbreak. His jaw clenched. Aaron doesn't love you. Neither do you. The lie burned my tongue. Not enough to choose me over your family obligations. Not enough to break your engagement. Not enough to risk the precious peace you're so desperate to maintain. That's not fair. None of this is fair. My voice rose despite my attempts at control. You knew you were engaged when you slept with me that first night in the hotel. You knew when you hired me. You knew when you came to me 2 weeks ago and made me fall deeper in love with a man I can never have. You've known all along, and you did it anyway. Yes. The admission was stark, honest. I did it anyway because I'm selfish and weak when it comes to you. Because even knowing it would end like this, I couldn't stop myself from taking what I wanted. And what did you want, Adrian? Really? He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands framing my face with devastating familiarity. You. Every moment of every day. I wanted mornings waking up beside you. I wanted evenings cooking dinner together. Badly, because neither of us can cook. I wanted lazy Sundays reading the paper, arguing about Italian literature, making love until we forgot our own names. I wanted a life with you, Lily. The kind of normal, beautiful life that men like me don't get to have. Tears streamed down my face, his thumbs catching them even as more fell. But you chose your family instead. I chose to protect innocent people from a war that would destroy this city. I chose duty over desire, honor over happiness, the right thing over the thing I wanted most. His forehead rested against mine. But God, it's killing me. Then let me go. The words ripped from somewhere deep inside. Stop asking me to come to your apartment. Stop looking at me like I'm the only real thing in your world. Stop making me hope for a future that can never exist. Let me go, Adrian, so I can try to build something with someone who's actually available. I can't. His voice broke. I know I should. I know it's the right thing, the kind thing. But the thought of you with Aaron, with anyone, it makes me want to burn the world down. That's not love, that's possession. With you, they're the same thing. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. I love you too much to let you go, and I love you too much to ask you to wait for something that might never come. I'm trapped between my heart and my honor, and it's tearing me apart. What do you want from me? The question was barely a whisper. I want you to stay, to work at Moretti Imports, to let me see you every day, even if we can never be together the way I want. I want to know you're safe, protected, within reach. I want stolen moments like this where I can pretend, just for a few hours, that you're mine. His hand slid down to my waist. But I also want you to be happy. And I know staying, loving me from a distance while I marry someone else, won't make you happy. You're right, it won't. I stepped back, needing space to think, to breathe, to remember all the reasons this was impossible. But leaving won't make me happy either. There's no winning here, Adrian. Every path leads to heartbreak, Then choose the path with the least amount of pain. Go to dinner with Aaron. Let him make you laugh. Maybe even let yourself fall for him if you can. He's a good man, Lily. Better than me in all the ways that matter. He can give you the normal life you deserve. I don't want normal. The truth emerged before I could stop it. I want you. Damaged, complicated, impossible you. I want the man who quotes Italian poetry and makes me feel like I'm the only person in the world who matters. I want stolen moments and dangerous love and all the heartbreak that comes with it. Because one moment with you is worth a lifetime of normal with anyone else. His control shattered. His mouth found mine in a kiss that tasted of desperation and inevitability, of everything we wanted and could never have. We moved through his sterile apartment like ghosts, leaving pieces of clothing in our wake until we reached his bedroom. The only room that looked lived in, with books stacked on the nightstand, and a photograph in a silver frame that I didn't let myself look at too closely. This changes nothing. He breathed against my skin as we fell onto his bed. I still have to marry her. I know. My hands mapped his body like a cartographer, memorizing every scar, every muscle, every place that made him gasp. But we have tonight, and we took it. Every stolen hour until dawn broke across the city skyline. We took it knowing it solved nothing, changed nothing, made everything infinitely more complicated. But we were beyond logic, beyond reason, beyond anything except the desperate need to be close while we still could. As I dressed in the pre-dawn darkness, Adrian watched from the bed, his expression unreadable. "Aaron will ask you again," he said quietly. "About dinner." "I know." "What will you tell him?" I finished buttoning my blouse, considering the question. Considering a future where I tried to move on, to build something with a man who wasn't engaged to someone else. A man who could offer me mornings and evenings and lazy Sundays without guilt or secrecy or stolen moments. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe I'll say yes. Maybe I'll torture myself trying to feel for him what I feel for you. Or maybe I'll say no and continue loving you from a distance, collecting these dangerous nights like precious jewels. You deserve better than this." Probably. I moved to the door, needing to leave before my resolve crumbled. But we don't always get what we deserve. Sometimes we get what we can't walk away from instead. His eyes held mine across the dim room. "I love you, Lily Miller, and I'm sorry that loving you means I have to destroy you." "You're not destroying me," I said softly. "You're just breaking my heart. There's a difference." As I rode the elevator down, walked out into the cool morning air, I knew I'd just made everything impossibly worse. Adrian was right. I should say yes to Aaron, should try to move forward, should stop collecting these moments that would inevitably shatter me. But I also knew I wouldn't. Because loving Adrian Moretti, even from a distance, even knowing it was hopeless, felt more real than anything else in my life. And I wasn't ready to give up that feeling, no matter how much it hurt. Tomorrow, Aaron would ask me to dinner again, and I would have to decide whether to choose the path of least pain or the one that led straight toward heartbreak with the man I loved. I suspected I already knew which path I'd choose, the same one I'd been choosing since that night in the hotel bar. The one that led to Adrian, always and inevitably, no matter the cost. The Castellano family discovered the truth 3 months before the wedding, and when they did, it came with the force of a bomb detonating in the center of our carefully constructed lie. I was leaving work late, as had become my habit. Most nights, I'd find excuses to stay until the building emptied, stealing an hour in Adrian's office where we could drop the pretense and just be together. Nothing physical. We'd established that boundary after our last dangerous night at his apartment, but everything emotional. Talking, sharing, pretending for 60 precious minutes that the outside world didn't exist. Tonight, Adrian had been delayed in a meeting with the Castellanos. Final wedding details. he'd texted. Stay if you can. I need to see you after. So I'd stayed, working on actual reports at my desk while the building grew quiet around me. I didn't hear them approach, didn't know I wasn't alone until a hand closed around my arm, yanking me from my chair. This her? A man I'd never seen before, built like a linebacker with dead eyes, addressed someone behind him. That's her. The voice belonged to Isabella Castellano. I'd seen her photograph countless times, but never in person. She was even more beautiful up close. All sharp cheekbones and cold elegance in a white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Ms. Castellano. I tried to keep my voice steady despite the terror flooding my system. Can I help you? You can start by explaining why you're fucking my fiancé. She moved closer, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Did you think we wouldn't find out? That my father doesn't have eyes everywhere in this city? My mouth went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. She nodded to the man holding my arm. Show her. He pulled out a phone, thumb swiping through photographs that made my stomach drop. Me and Adrian in his office, bodies close, his hand on my face. Me leaving his apartment building at dawn. Us in his car, his hand covering mine on the center console. Nothing explicitly sexual, but damning in their intimacy. 3 months of surveillance, Isabella said conversationally. We suspected something when Adrian came back from Rome different. Colder, more distant, like his heart wasn't in this anymore. She laughed, bitter and sharp. Turns out his heart was here with you. It's not, we haven't... The words tangled on my tongue. Don't insult my intelligence. I don't care if you've technically kept your clothes on. The photographs show something worse than sex. They show love. And love makes my fiancé weak, distracted, unsuitable for the alliance our families require. Then break the engagement. The words escaped before I could stop them. If you don't want him, if this is just business... Her hand cracked across my face with enough force to snap my head sideways. My cheek blazed with pain, tears springing to my eyes. You stupid girl, Isabella hissed. This isn't about what I want. This is about preventing a war, about maintaining the balance of power that keeps this city from drowning in blood. Adrian Moretti understood that. He accepted his duty, and then you showed up and made him forget what's at stake. The man holding my arm tightened his grip painfully. What do you want us to do with her, Miss Castellano? Isabella considered me with the detached interest of someone examining an insect. My father suggested we make her disappear. Quietly. An accident, perhaps. A mugging gone wrong. Something to eliminate the problem permanently. Ice flooded my veins. You can't... I can do whatever I want. My father controls half this city's police force. No one would investigate too carefully. And Adrian, devastated by the random death of an employee, would throw himself into wedding preparations as a distraction from his grief. Problem solved. Adrian would know. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. He'd know you did it, and he'd never forgive you. Your alliance would crumble. Would it? Isabella tilted her head. Or would he simply accept the consequences of letting himself care for someone in this world? We all learn that lesson eventually. Love is a liability. The people we care about become weapons our enemies use against us. The sound of the elevator arriving made us all turn. Adrian stepped out, his expression shifting from mild curiosity to absolute fury in the space of a heartbeat as he took in the scene. Isabella, her enforcer gripping my arm, my reddening cheek. Let her go. His voice was death itself. Now. Adrian. Isabella's tone was pleasant, unperturbed. We were just having a conversation about appropriate workplace relationships. I said, let her go. He moved forward with predatory grace. Or Dante is a dead man before he takes another breath. The The threat was delivered with such absolute certainty that Dante's hand fell away from my arm. Adrian crossed to me immediately, his fingers gentle as they examined my face, his eyes promising murder as they catalogued the handprint forming on my cheek. "Did you know about this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Did you know they were watching us?" "I suspected." His jaw clenched, but I underestimated how far they'd go. "Far enough to eliminate obstacles," Isabella said. "Which brings us to the central question. What exactly is Lily Miller to you, Adrian? Because if she's just a distraction, a temporary fascination, then this problem is easily solved. Don't." The word cracked through the space like a gunshot. "Don't even think about threatening her." "Then what do you suggest? We have 3 months until the wedding. 3 months for you to get your head straight and remember your obligations. But I can't have you mooning over some secretary, Adrian. It makes you look weak. It makes our family look weak." "I don't moon," Adrian said coldly. "And Lily isn't just some secretary. She's—" He stopped, jaw working as he struggled with something. "She's what?" Isabella pressed. "Your mistress? Your great love? The reason you've been distant and distracted and utterly unsuitable as a husband?" "She's everything." The admission dropped into the silence like a stone into still water. "She's everything, Isabella. The reason I wake up in the morning. The only real thing in my entire constructed life. The woman I love more than duty or honor, or the fragile peace our marriage is supposed to maintain." The office was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel the weight of Adrian's words reshaping reality around us. "Then you're a fool," Isabella said finally. "Because love won't save you when my father declares war. Love won't protect the innocent people caught in the crossfire. Love won't rebuild the businesses that burn or resurrect the bodies that pile up in the streets. All your love will do is destroy everything you've worked to build." "I know." Adrian's voice was hollow. "I've known since the moment I met her that loving Lily would be my downfall. But knowing it hasn't stopped me from falling anyway." Isabella studied us both, something calculating entering her expression. "What if I offered you a choice? Break it off with her completely. No more stolen moments, no more dangerous glances, no more late nights at the office. Marry me as planned, produce the heirs required to seal the alliance, and live your life with the knowledge that you chose duty over desire. Or—" She paused, letting the alternative hang in the air. "Call off the wedding, claim your secretary, and watch as my father unleashes hell on this city. War that will consume families on both sides. War that will leave the streets red with blood. War that your great love will have caused." "That's not a choice," I said, finding my voice. "That's a threat. It's reality." Isabella's smile was cold. "This is the world we live in, Miss Miller. The world Adrian was born into and can never leave. A world where personal happiness is a luxury we can't afford, when so many lives depend on our decisions." Adrian's hand found mine, fingers intertwining with a desperate grip. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. My father has made his position clear. Either you marry me and we proceed as planned, or the Castellanos move against the Morettis with every resource at our disposal. Those are your options." "Give me time," Adrian said. 2 weeks. Let me talk to your father, try to negotiate something." "My father doesn't negotiate when he's been disrespected." Isabella's voice hardened. "And you sleeping with your secretary while engaged to his daughter is the ultimate disrespect. Be grateful I convinced him to give you this choice instead of simply eliminating Miss Miller and moving forward." The casual way she discussed murdering me made my knees weak. Adrian must have felt me sway because his arm came around my waist, holding me up. "I need time to think," he said. "You have until tomorrow night. The engagement party is scheduled for next week. 200 guests. full society coverage, the formal announcement of our union. You can either show up with me on your arm, ready to play the devoted fiancé, or you can declare your love for your secretary and watch the city burn. Choose wisely, Adrian. Some mistakes can't be unmade. Isabella turned to leave, Dante following like a shadow. At the elevator, she paused, looking back over her shoulder. For what it's worth, she said. I understand the appeal. She's lovely, genuine, everything I'm not. In another life, maybe you could have had her. But we live in this life. And in this life, some loves are too expensive to afford. After they left, Adrian pulled me into his office, closing and locking the door before leaning against it like it was the only thing holding him upright. I'm sorry, he said, the words rough. God, Lily, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. Should have seen this coming. You did see it coming. I sank into the leather chair, my entire body shaking with delayed reaction. You warned me from the beginning that loving you was dangerous. I just didn't understand how dangerous until Isabella threatened to make me disappear like a character in a crime novel. He crossed to me, kneeling so we were eye level. I won't let anything happen to you. Whatever choice I make, your safety is my priority. Don't do that. I cupped his face, feeling stubble rough against my palms. Don't make this about protecting me. This is about hundreds of innocent lives. This is about preventing a war that would devastate the city. You can't sacrifice all of that for me. Watch me. His voice was fierce. I've spent my entire life doing what's expected, following the rules, accepting my obligations, putting duty above everything else. But for you, Lily, I'll break every rule. I'll burn every bridge. I'll risk every alliance. Because a life without you isn't worth living. And a life knowing I caused a war? Knowing people died because we couldn't control ourselves? Could you live with that? The question hit him like a physical blow. I watched the conflict play across his face, love warring with duty, desire battling honor. I don't know, he admitted finally. I don't know if I can marry Isabella knowing I love you, but I don't know if I can choose you, knowing what it will cost. I'm trapped, Lily, completely and utterly trapped, between the only two things in my life that have ever mattered. I pulled him up, into my arms, holding him as tightly as I could. Then let me make the choice for you. Let me walk away. I'll quit tomorrow, leave the city, disappear somewhere Isabella's father can't touch me. You'll marry her as planned. And this will all have been a beautiful, terrible mistake. No. His arms crushed me against him. Don't ask me to let you go. I can't. I won't. Then what's the solution? Tears streamed down my face. Because tomorrow night you have to give Isabella an answer, and there's no version of this that doesn't end in someone's destruction. We stayed like that, holding each other in the quiet office, while the city lights glittered outside, and our impossible future loomed like a storm on the horizon. Two people in love who couldn't be together without consequences that neither of us could live with. Finally, Adrian pulled back, his hands framing my face with devastating gentleness. Go home, he said. Get some sleep. Tomorrow I'll figure this out. I'll find a way to keep you safe and prevent the war and somehow make this work. That's impossible. I know. But I've built an empire on making impossible things happen. This won't be any different. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that love could somehow triumph over duty and honor and family obligations. But Isabella's words echoed in my mind. In this life, some loves are too expensive to afford. As I left the building, I knew with cold certainty that tomorrow would bring an ending. Either Adrian would choose duty and I'd lose him forever, or he'd choose love, and we'd both live with the blood of innocence on our hands. There was no winning. There never had been. We'd been playing a game with impossible stakes from the very beginning, and now the bill had come due. I just prayed that whatever choice Adrian made, Whatever ending we faced, we'd both find a way to survive it. Even if survival meant living with shattered hearts and the ghosts of what might have been. Adrian didn't come to work the next morning. Neither did I. I'd spent the night pacing my tiny apartment, phone clutched in my hand, waiting for a text that would tell me what he'd decided, waiting to learn whether I'd lost him to duty or whether we were about to plunge the city into war. The text came at noon. Castellano Estate, 2 p.m. Be there. Just those 6 words, no explanation, no context. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple black dress that felt appropriate for either a funeral or a war declaration, then called a cab because I wasn't sure my hands were steady enough to drive. The Castellano estate was in Westchester, all wrought iron gates and security checkpoints and the kind of old money that didn't need to advertise its power. When I arrived, Adrian was already there, standing in what looked like a library, with floor-to-ceiling books and leather furniture that had probably been there for generations. Isabella was there too, along with an older man who could only be her father. Marco Castellano, the man whose word could start or stop wars, who controlled half the city with a nod of his head. Miss Miller. Marco's voice was cultured, almost gentle. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. Everyone has choices. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. We have much to discuss. I sat, hyper-aware of Adrian across the room, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes burning with something I couldn't quite read. My daughter tells me you and Adrian have formed an attachment, Marco continued. Is this true? Yes. No point lying now. And you love him? Yes. Enough to walk away, to disappear, start over somewhere he'll never find you, let him marry my daughter and fulfill his obligations? I looked at Adrian, really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the absolute devastation in his expression. If that's what he chooses, yes. I love him enough to let him go. Interesting. Marco settled into his chair, steepling his fingers. And you, Adrian? Do you love her? More than my own life. Adrian's voice was steady despite the emotion behind it. More than anything. Then we have a problem. Marco's tone remained pleasant, conversational. Because this marriage between our families was meant to create peace. But I'm beginning to think it will only create resentment and eventual betrayal. A man in love with someone else makes a poor husband and an unreliable ally. I'll honor my commitments. Adrian straightened. Whatever personal feelings I have, I'll do my duty to both families. Will you? Marco leaned forward. When your wife is pregnant with your child, but you're thinking about Miss Miller, when business decisions require you to prioritize family but your heart is elsewhere, when the inevitable temptation rises to see her again, to touch her again, to claim what you truly want? No, Adrian, a marriage based on such divided loyalties is destined to fail. Then what do you propose? Isabella asked, speaking for the first time. Because eliminating Miss Miller might solve the immediate problem, but it won't make Adrian love me. It'll just make him hate us all. Precisely. Marco stood, moving to the window. Which is why I'm going to offer you a different choice. Break the engagement, Adrian. Claim your secretary. Live your life with the woman you love. The words were so unexpected, so impossible, that I was certain I'd misheard. From the shock on Adrian's face, he thought the same. You can't be serious, Adrian said. You'd declare war over this. Would I? Marco turned back to face us. The truth is, I've spent the last 24 hours reconsidering everything. This engagement was my idea, forced on both our families out of fear that without a formal alliance we'd eventually destroy each other. But perhaps that fear was misplaced. Perhaps the real threat isn't to each other, but to our way of life from outside forces. The FBI has been circling both our operations for months. The new district attorney is crusading against organized crime. We're facing pressure from criminal organizations moving in from other cities. In this environment, a fractured alliance based on a loveless marriage might actually be more dangerous than no alliance at all. What are you saying? Adrian's voice was carefully controlled. I'm saying the world is changing. The old ways, arranged marriages, blood feuds, territorial warfare, they're becoming obsolete, expensive, drawing too much attention from law enforcement. We need to adapt or die. Marco moved to stand directly in front of Adrian. You're brilliant, Adrian. Strategic, controlled, exactly the kind of leader our families need. But you're also compromised by your love for Miss Miller. That compromise makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability in a leader can spread to the entire organization. So you eliminate the vulnerability, I said quietly, understanding where this was going. You eliminate me. No. Marco's smile was cold. I eliminate the conflict. Adrian, if you marry my daughter while loving someone else, you'll always be torn, divided, weak. But if you marry Miss Miller, if you choose love over duty, you'll be whole, focused, stronger than you've ever been. And a strong Adrian Moretti, even one not married to my daughter. It is more valuable to our combined interests than a compromised one bound by obligation. You're giving us your blessing? Adrian sounded skeptical. Just like that? Not just like that. There are conditions. Marco's expression hardened. First, the engagement ends publicly and amicably. Isabella meets someone else quickly. I'll arrange it, so it doesn't look like she was rejected. Second, you and Miss Miller marry within the month. A quick, private ceremony that makes it clear this wasn't some affair, but a genuine love that deserves respect. Third, and most importantly, our families remain allies, separate but equal, supporting each other against common enemies, but no longer bound by marriage. And if I refuse? If I choose duty anyway? Then you marry Isabella as planned, and spend your life wondering what might have been. I won't force you to choose love, Adrian. But I won't let you choose duty out of misplaced honor when it serves neither of our family's interests. I looked at Isabella, trying to gauge her reaction. She appeared almost relieved, which shocked me until I remembered what Aaron had said. This marriage was a prison sentence for both of them. You're okay with this? I asked her directly. More than okay. Her smile was the first genuine one I'd seen from her. I've been dreading this wedding since my father announced it, marrying a man who doesn't love me, producing heirs out of obligation, spending my life as a political pawn. It's been my nightmare. If Adrian's love for you gives us both an escape, I'm taking it. There's someone else, Marco added. A young prosecutor Isabella's been seeing in secret. Someone who makes her actually smile. Someone she chose for herself rather than having chosen for her. If this engagement ends, she's free to pursue that relationship openly. The pieces fell into place. This wasn't about Adrian and me at all. This was about Marco Castellano, seeing that the old ways weren't working anymore, that forcing his daughter into a loveless marriage was as much a cage for her as it was for Adrian. I don't understand, I said. Yesterday you threatened to kill me. Today you're blessing our relationship. What changed? I spent the night considering what kind of legacy I want to leave, Marco said simply. Do I want to be the father who forced his daughter into misery to maintain a power structure that's already crumbling? Or do I want to be the leader who adapted, who found new ways to protect our interests without sacrificing the next generation's happiness? I chose adaptation. Adrian hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He stood frozen, clearly struggling to process this sudden reversal of everything he'd believed was inevitable. Adrian, I said softly. Say something. I think, he said slowly, that this might be a trap, that I'll accept this generous offer and then discover the real cost. No trap. Marco's voice was firm. Just a recognition that times change, and we change with them, or die. So what's your answer, Adrian? Do you choose duty to an alliance that no longer serves either of our families? Or do you choose the woman you love and the strength that love gives you? Adrian's eyes found mine across the room, and I saw everything in that gaze: fear and hope and desperate, overwhelming love. Lily, he said, my name a prayer and a question. What do you want? What did I want? I wanted morning coffees and lazy Sundays, and a life built on more than stolen moments. I wanted to wake up beside him without guilt, to build a future that didn't require constant looking over our shoulders. I wanted the impossible thing we'd been denied since that first night in the hotel bar. I want you, I said simply. However I can have you, whatever the cost. Even if it means marrying into this world, becoming part of something dangerous and dark and completely outside the normal life you deserve. I stopped wanting normal the moment I met you. I stood, crossing to him, taking his hands in mine. I want extraordinary. I want complicated. I want you, Adrian Moretti, with all the danger and darkness and impossible complications that come with you. His control finally shattered. He pulled me against him, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that tasted of relief and joy and the beginning of something new. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marco was smiling. I'll take that as acceptance of my offer, he said dryly. Isabella, call your young prosecutor. Tell him the engagement is off, and you're ready to build the life you actually want. Adrian, start planning a wedding. Small, private, but legitimate. I want it clear that Miss Miller is your wife, not your mistress. And both of you, his voice hardened, remember that this alliance, while no longer bound by marriage, still exists. I'm giving you your freedom, but I expect loyalty in return. You have it, Adrian said. Both of our families benefit more from willing allies than forced bonds. This will work, Marco. I'll make sure it works. After the Castellanos left, giving us privacy, Adrian and I stood in that library, holding each other as the magnitude of what had just happened settled over us. Is this real? I whispered against his chest. Or am I going to wake up and find out it was a dream? It's real. His arms tightened around me. Somehow, impossibly, we get to be together. No more stolen moments, no more hiding, just us, building the life we want. I'm terrified, I admitted. Good, so am I. He pulled back to look at me. This world I live in, Lily, it's dangerous. There will be threats, complications, moments when you'll wonder if loving me is worth it. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or an easy life. I don't want easy. I want you. Then you'll have me. He kissed me again, soft and sweet and full of promise. Every moment of every day for the rest of our lives, starting with right now. We were married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the same church where Adrian's grandparents had exchanged vows. Just family. Aaron as best man, my roommate Emma as maid of honor, Marco Castellano and Isabella in attendance as a show of goodwill and genuine support. When Adrian slid the ring onto my finger, I saw tears in his eyes for the first time. I love you, he whispered. My Lily, my wife, my everything. I love you too, I whispered back. My Adrian, my home. The reception was louder, more crowded, with both families in attendance and a tentative peace that felt fragile but real. I watched Adrian move through the crowd, confident and controlled but softening every time he looked at me, and I marveled at how we'd gotten here. From a one-night stand to impossible love to this, a marriage that should never have happened, but somehow had become inevitable. You good? Aaron asked, appearing beside me with champagne. I'm perfect. And I was. Terrified and ecstatic, and completely overwhelmed, but perfect. Take care of him, Aaron said seriously. My brother's spent his whole life taking care of everyone else. He needs someone to take care of him for once. I will. I promise. That night, in the hotel suite Adrian had booked for our wedding night, he undressed me slowly, reverently, like I was something precious he couldn't believe was finally his. No more hiding, he said, his lips tracing paths across my skin. No more distance, just us. Just us, I agreed, pulling him closer, losing myself in the man I'd chosen and who'd chosen me right back. Consequences be damned. We made love until dawn, sealing our vows in the most intimate way possible. And when the sun rose over the city, painting our room in shades of gold, Adrian held me close and whispered the future we'd build together. A future where love won over duty, where impossible became inevitable, where two broken people found a way to be whole. 3 months later, I discovered I was pregnant. Adrian's reaction was everything I could have hoped for. Fierce joy, protective tenderness, and absolute certainty that our child would be raised in love, not obligation. A Moretti, he said, his hand over my still flat stomach. But one who gets to choose their own path, who won't be forced into arrangements or alliances, who will know that love matters more than power. That's a radical philosophy for a man in your position. You've made me radical. He kissed me softly. You've made me believe that we can change the rules, that the next generation doesn't have to repeat our mistakes. Our child will have choices, Lily. The choice to be part of this world or walk away from it. The choice to love who they want. The choice to build the life that makes them happy. I thought about Marco Castellano's words about adaptation, about changing times requiring new ways. Perhaps Adrian and I were the beginning of that change. Proof that even in the darkest world, love could find a way. Our daughter was born on a spring morning, perfect and healthy with Adrian's dark hair and my green eyes. We named her Sophia, after Adrian's grandmother who'd first immigrated to this country seeking a better life. As I held her in the hospital, Adrian beside me with his hand covering both of ours, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that first night in a hotel bar to working in his building, from stolen moments to impossible choices, from threatened war to unexpected peace. It hadn't been easy. There had been obstacles and threats and moments when we'd both been certain we'd lose each other. But we'd fought for this, for the right to love each other openly, to build a family based on choice instead of obligation. Thank you, Adrian said softly, his eyes on our daughter. For what? For running into my shop that night looking for salvation. For staying when every logical bone in your body told you to run. For loving me enough to risk everything. For giving me this. He gestured to Sophia. A future I never thought I'd have. A family built on love instead of duty. A life worth living instead of just surviving. You gave me the same thing. I leaned against him, Sophia warm in my arms. A love worth fighting for. A home worth defending. A future worth all the obstacles it took to get here. Aaron arrived an hour later, promptly declaring himself the favorite uncle, and promising to teach Sophia all the things her father would disapprove of. Marco and Isabella came together, bringing gifts and genuine smiles, their own lives having found the happiness that came from choosing love over obligation. As I watched our strange, complicated family gather around Sophia, I realized that Marco had been right. The old ways were changing. Our generation was building something new. Alliances based on respect instead of fear. Families built on love instead of obligation. A world where duty and desire didn't have to be mutually exclusive. It wasn't perfect. Adrian still operated in shadows, still made decisions I didn't always agree with, still commanded an empire that required moral flexibility. But he was mine. and I was his, and together we were building something worth all the fights, all the tears, all the impossible choices that had brought us here. That night, with Sophia asleep in the hospital bassinet and Adrian dozing in the chair beside my bed, I thought about Isabella's words. In this life, some loves are too expensive to afford. She'd been wrong. Or maybe the world had changed enough that she was no longer right. Either way, Adrian and I had proven that even the most expensive love could be afforded if you were willing to fight for it, to risk everything, to believe that impossible could become inevitable. I was Lily Moretti now. Wife, mother, the woman who'd changed the rules simply by refusing to accept them. And as I drifted toward sleep, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd choose this life, this love, this impossible man, over and over again. Some loves are worth any cost. Ours was worth everything.